My name is AP Velasco, and I'm a proud Army civilian. I love serving as an Army civilian because I truly believe that there are multiple avenues of life where you can find yourself in a life of service, while also being who I am and bringing my authentic self to the fight every day. I am a way that you can be all you can be.
Wow, what a great start. Being all you can be. The Department of Army Civilians, and you just saw a short video of Department of Army Civilians doing their missions in the field, and it's an exciting career, as you all know, and I'm very excited to be here this morning. I'm Bill Moore. I chair the AUSA Civilian Advisory Committee, and on behalf of General Brown and the Council of Trustees, I just wanted to welcome everyone to the 2024 AUSA Civilian Showcase. And to start out this morning, you know, there is this thing called the best places to work in federal government. And the Army has struggled, honestly, over the years in trying to be a great place to work, especially for Army civilians. It's been a bit challenging. We have very difficult missions. We have must-do jobs that have to be done every single day, and often not enough resources to get it done. So very stressful work, and we've just got this great cohort of civilians, a major critical aspect of the Army's active component, and they're doing great things every day. And what's really awesome, though, but now in 2023, the Army actually did very well in being the best places to work. And I think this is a tribute to the senior leadership of the U.S. Army, starting with Secretary of the Army Christine Wormuth. And thank you, ma'am, for all that you do and all that you've done. You know, mentors told me long ago, leaders do three things. They get missions done, they prepare their organization for the future, and probably most importantly, they take care of their people. And that's what the Army has been doing here, and it's reflected in how the Army scored this coming year. So we're going to start by bringing some folks up and letting Secretary Wormuth reward them and recognize them for being in the top 5 best places to work in federal government. So first of all, ma'am, if you could step up. Thank you. And Secretary Wormuth, in case you didn't know, she started her career as a presidential management intern and spent over 6 years as a DoD government civilian. So she has been where all of us have been. And thank you, ma'am. What a great career you've had. I want to start with our number 5. Best places to work is the Army Acquisition Support Center. And with us to represent and accept that award, first of all, Lieutenant General Rob Collins, who is the MILDEP to the ASALT, working in the Pentagon. Colonel Barry Williams, the Deputy Director, is going to accept. He is the Deputy Director of the Army Acquisition Center. And if you all would, join us on stage, thank you. And if we could get her the banner, great. Big round of applause. Congratulations to Army Support Center. Our number 4 best places to work winner this year was actually the Department of the Army headquarters. And if we could get Dr. Agnes Garvin Schaefer up to represent. We didn't want the Secretary to give the banner to herself. But Dr. Schaefer is the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Manpower and Reserve Affairs, and we'll hear more from her later today. But Headquarters DA got number 4 of best places to work in the Army. Thanks to all the Headquarters DA leaders and staff in getting that. Thank you, Dr. Schaefer. Our number 3 best places to work is the Army Test and Evaluation Command, and here to accept for ATEC is General Patrick Gaydon, the Commanding General of ATEC, and his Command Sergeant Major Bradford Smith. Thank you, sirs, for coming. And congratulations to the entire ATEC workforce. Our number 2 best places to work Army Command is U.S. Army North. They've been kind of busy the past few weeks, and I'm glad we were able to get some representatives here today. Accepting on behalf of Major General Scott Sherman, the Commanding General, is Mr. Elliot Rogers, the Deputy Chief of Staff, and the Deputy Commanding General, Brigadier General Wilkins. Thank you, sirs, and thank you to the entire U.S. Army North workforce. And a special thank you to that team that's helping out with the hurricane relief. Thank you. And finally, our number 1 top command for best places to work is the U.S. Army Space and Missile Defense Command. And here to accept that banner is Lieutenant General Sean Gainey, the Commanding General of U.S. Army Space and Missile Defense Command. Awesome. How about a great hooah for all of the efforts to improve the Army? And thank you, ma'am, for coming. and really a big Army congratulations to everyone and seeing the progress of where we've gone over the past few years and improving the workplace and making it better. It's a war for talent out there, and this helps us retain talent at our organization. So thank you for that. And with that, I would like to bring up General Gainey, sir, if you don't mind. I mean, number 1, it comes with some responsibility, and we're all anxious to hear, what are you doing? What's your secret sauce for being number 1?
Wow. Surprise. Well, I tell you, it's an honor for me to accept the best workplace on behalf of the great, not only civilians, but soldiers, non-commissioned officers, and our great civilians within the Space and Missile Defense Command. What a phenomenal organization. Now, I've been in the command about 10 months, so I'd be remiss if I did not highlight the leadership that really help embed that culture within the command, and that's retired Lieutenant General Dan Karbler and the work that he did prior to me getting there, and I really appreciate what he did in that area. So when asked, I commonly talk to the workforce, when asked, hey, what makes SMDC the best place to work for you? The common feedback I get from our soldiers and civilians, mainly our civilians, since I'm here talking with the civilian piece today, is it's like a family. The command is like a family. And so I peeled that onion back. What makes it like a family? And so a couple of things we do in Space and Missile Defense Command. I know all the commands are doing a lot of great things, and what's worked for this command is the command has operationalized the feedback in several different ways. I'll start with the FEBS feedback that we get. We take all of the areas that we want to improve on and the areas we want to sustain, and we actually break it down, and the team breaks it down into focus groups and get feedback from the individuals within the command and what would you like to see within the command to make the command better. And then it's incumbent on the leadership up and down to implement those initiatives. And that happens year round. And then integrating that with our feedback portal. We have a portal within the command where it's an open discussion portal where anybody at any time can highlight where they want the command to be better and what inside of the command can be better. And that feedback comes all the way up to me and across the leadership, and there's constant dialogue within that portal, as you can imagine, and there's a lot of great discussion, and the workforce has really gravitated to that to the point where it's not so much complaints, it's how can we make the organization and the facilities around the organization better. And again, it's incumbent on the leadership to take that feedback and actually do something with it. And so that's kind of what's working for Space and Missile Defense Command. And again, it's an honor to be here to accept this on behalf of all of the great soldiers, non-commissioned officers, officers and civilian of this great command. So thank you.
Thank you, General Gainey. And I did want to give you a small token of our AUSA's appreciation for all that you're doing at Space and Missile Defense Command. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Well, again, I'd like to welcome everyone to this year's Civilian Showcase. We've got a pretty good lineup of speakers and a little bit different twist on things. We're going to actually ask you some questions, so we'll see how that plays out. But in any event, it's what I wanted to start out with is a keynote speaker, and if we could get Dr. Schaefer, Agnes Garibin Schaefer, who is the Army's Assistant Secretary for Manpower and Reserve Affairs. She is responsible for all things manpower, personnel, and the reserve component affairs for the Department of the Army, and is principal advisor to the Secretary for policy and performance oversight of human resources, training, readiness, mobilization, military health affairs. I'm feeling the stress here, Dr. Schaefer, force structure, manpower management, equal opportunity, equal employment opportunity, marketing, and other people matters. So she's had an exciting career, serving in various positions within the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Under Secretary of Defense for Personnel Readiness, and spent a great portion of time in RAND Corporation, helping federal government, I'm sure, fix things as we depend on RAND to do. So it's my distinct privilege to welcome Dr. Schaefer. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Moore, for that introduction, and good morning, everyone. I'm really, really excited to be here at the AUSA Civilian Showcase for the second year in a row. First, I'd like to thank Secretary Wormuth. I know she's not here anymore, but I want to thank her for taking the time to be with us today to formally recognize the Army as one of the federal government's top 10 best places to work. Secretary Wormuth's leadership has been the cornerstone to the Army's success over the past 4 years, and this achievement would not have been possible without her leadership, strategic vision, and her commitment to an exemplary workplace. We are so proud to have our leaders from the Army's top 5 best places to work commands here to receive recognition. General Colleton, Ms. Miller, and Ms. Fries, from the Corps of Engineers to Army Futures Command to Army Material Command, you bring decades of expertise to the fight. I know I speak for everyone when I say we are so excited to hear your collective thoughts on innovation in the Army and how to keep it alive for years to come in the panel to follow. And of course, thank you, General Gainey, for sharing SMDC's successes and valuable lessons learned after leading the Army's Best Places to Workplace the last 2 years. Since my confirmation almost 2 years ago, my priority has been the modernization of our Army personnel policies, processes, and systems in order to enable our force to be ready to defend our great nation. Our greatest assets rest not in our weapons systems, but in our people, and the unique backgrounds and experiences they bring to the fight every day. That includes our Army civilians across the enterprise who play a critical role in the continuous transformation of our total Army. As has been discussed throughout this year's conference, in-stride transformation is necessary given the unprecedented threat environment that we currently face. It is the most varied, uncertain threat environment that I have seen in my almost 30-year career in national security. As our Army civilians play a pivotal role in that transformation and modernization. Our more than 260,000 Army civilians make up an integral part of our force, providing expertise, stability, and continuity that contributes to the warfighting effort at home and around the world. While the theme of this year's AUSA conference is innovation and transformation, when I spoke at last year's Civilian Showcase, innovation and transformation were already at the top of our minds. We were ahead of the curve. We spent our time together sharing best practices and lesson learned across commands, and we brainstormed about ways to introduce Army civilian service as a viable career path in a competitive labor market, and to Gen Zers, who most often are not even aware that you can be an Army civilian. 1 year later, our efforts have yielded deeper awareness and greater exposure of the opportunities the Army has to offer for civilians. The strides we have made with our Army Civilian Corps over the last few years have been exceptional, and I'm thrilled to highlight a few of those efforts here today. One of those efforts is the attention we have given our civilian recruitment efforts in the last calendar year. It has not all been about military recruiting. Last year, we talked about my concerns about the low level of awareness of Army civilian jobs, and I mentioned that we are preparing to propose to develop the first ever Army civilian marketing ads. This plan is coming to fruition. The Army marketing plan, entitled Find Your Next Level, was approved by Army senior leaders, highlighting the diverse opportunities you can access as an Army civilian. The two initial marketing ads have reached nearly 26 million households nationally since their release in May, which is absolutely remarkable. We also have dedicated Army civilian swag for the first time. In addition, we have carried out two total Army career fairs over the last year, one in Dallas, Texas, and one in Houston, Texas. For the first time ever, these career fairs has had representatives from the total force in a single event, including the active Army, National Guard, Army Reserve, and various commands looking to broaden their applicant pools for civilian positions. These career fair highlighted the extensive range of career options available across the total Army, and in particular raised awareness of civilian opportunities. I know many of you in this room attended those career fairs and spoke to many applicants for many hours. Thank you for sharing your Army story with those applicants. But our efforts have not ended with raising awareness of the more than 500 civilian jobs in the Army. We must also modernize our arcane, slow, bureaucratic hiring processes, some of which are not even owned by the Army. There is no question that they are putting the Army at a disadvantage with private sector practices. With the support of Army senior leaders, we are framing out a major transformation of the civilian hiring process to streamline it and speed it up to become more competitive with the private sector. That includes working with OSD and OPM. We have got to fix USA jobs. But we have not just been focused on recruiting and the hiring process. We have also been focused on civilian talent management and retention. This includes several initiatives to make the Army more competitive in the labor market, such as developing more flexible career paths and offering opportunities to upskill and reskill, things that are expected in today's civilian labor market. We are working with stakeholders across the Army civilian enterprise to identify what those flexible career paths might look like and what other levers we can employ to modernize our retention incentives, to include non-monetary incentives such as work-life balance support and work environment enhancements. It also includes modernizing our systems and equipment. We cannot attract and retain top talent or foster innovation with antiquated systems and equipment. We need to find a way to restore the government's reputation for being the place to conduct cutting-edge innovation with state-of-the-art equipment. The execution of our mission to support our warfighters depends on it. Don't get me wrong, we must be clear-eyed that some aspects of this type of multifaceted enterprise transformation will take time, attention, and resources. But we should not allow those long poles in the tent to hold up near and midterm initiatives. While the challenges I just outlined keep me up at night, the innovation that is taking place across our commands and even in the Pentagon demonstrates that modernization of our civilian personnel policies, processes, and systems is possible. Given the stakes, that modernization is necessary. And it is the responsibility of all of us to foster that innovation and empower it in our little corner of the Army. So today, I challenge each and every one of you here to innovate and modernize in areas where you can, when you can. If you face challenges or impediments, raise them up the chain, including to my team. We will add them to our long list of barriers that we're trying to remove. I also challenge you to spread the word about what it is like to be an Army civilian. Be proactive about sharing our mission. As part of the Army family, build your elevator pitch about what being part of that workforce means to you. Encourage your circles to come to our events, reach out, and find folks who are passionate about the call to service. And if some of you need help, we have some great material to take back to your communities, including the Army Civilian Talent Development Guide and the Employee Engagement Guide for Army Leaders. Both resources can be found on your table and offer a snapshot into how we develop our civilian talent, as well as how our force will stay the course as a top 10 place to work for years to come. Army civilians are the connective tissue of our force, performing critical duties that make the Army who we are. We can't achieve or grow our mission without them. Their abundant history of selfless service to the Army and the American people spans more than 2.5 centuries, and as an Army civilian myself, I am full of hope for the next 2.5 centuries to come. I am also incredibly grateful for every day that I get to call you all my teammates and colleagues. Thank you again for attending our civilian showcase today. I look forward to our conversations and the rest of the program. Go Army and be all you can be.
Ma'am, if I could, just real quick, thank you on behalf of AUSA for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right. Thank you, Dr. Schaefer, for those great words of wisdom. I mean, we really have a lot of momentum, and this forum is one of the few places where we can get together and share ideas to advance our organizations and make our places that we work the best places we can make them. And wanted to just real quickly recognize we do have the Deputy Undersecretary of the Army here, Mario Diaz. Thank you, sir, for attending. And he's got a tough job, and he works tirelessly behind the scenes to make things better, especially trying to manage the senior executives, of which we got a few in the room, sure. But but thank you, sir, for your selfless service to our nation. Before I invite our panelists, we're about to transition to the panelist side of this. I want to get some feedback from you all. Last year, y'all suggested we do this, so we listened. You heard from Dr. Schaefer and you heard from General Gainey about how everyone has a part in keeping our Army the best place to work. If I could paraphrase President John F. Kennedy and say this: ask not what your Army can do for you, but what you can do for your Army. And with that, we're going to pass out some 3x5 cards, and then I'll read some answers. And it can be anonymous, Or if you'd like credit, please write your name down and your organization, and I'll give you credit when we say the answers. I'll get to as many as we can, but here's the question. What action will you take to keep the Army in the top best places to work next year, over the next year? So anyway, if you would, think about that, and would love to hear some feedback from you, and I'll get to that later in the session today. Just one action. No action is too small, and we'll collect those up. All right, let's transition to our panel. We are very fortunate today to have senior leaders from 3 of our Army commands. These discussions today are going to focus on innovation and change and keeping the Army the best place, one of the best places to work. You know, we're good, but we need to get better. It's an infinite game in trying to make the workforce better. So we plan to dive into their insights, experiences, and perspectives on how they are leading their organizations. And following our discussion, we'll ask, not only will I read some of the answers to that question I just gave you, but I'll ask a few more questions, and hopefully we'll be able to have a little bit of dialogue there. So without further ado, let's get into the panel discussion. Our panelists today, first of all, we have a new member, Major General Kim Colleton. She is the Deputy Chief of Engineers and the Deputy Commanding General of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And in any event, General Graham got called away to the White House, I think, this morning, and she gallantly stepped in. Thank you, ma'am, for being here today. Secondly, we have Ms. Christina Fries, who, by the way, actually also sits on my AUSA Civilian Advisory Committee, and thank you, Christina, for that. And she is the Deputy Chief of Staff G1 of the U.S. Army Materiel Command, where many of our Department of Army civilians work across the various subordinate organizations of AMC. And finally, we have Ms. Hong Miller, who is the Chief Human Capital Officer, AFC, Army Futures Command. Always does things a little bit differently, but she is the Chief Human Capital Officer of Army Futures Command. And anyway, I invite you, please extend a warm welcome to our panel. We're going to do 2 rounds of questions. First of all, I'm going to ask one question that all 3 of the panelists will answer, and then I'll have some more directed questions for each of the panelists in the second round. So let's get started. For round 1, the question is, what recent innovations or creative strategies have you implemented that sparked excitement and impacted your command's overall commitment to the mission? With that, General Colleton.
Okay, thank you. To get started, first of all, thank you. Good morning. Thanks for allowing me to join this prestigious panel. It's really important. In the Corps of Engineers, 40,000 talented civilians are key enablers of our team. And so overseeing a $95 billion program of projects either underway or in the planning, we really rely on our talent to get the job done. But every day we're competing with private contracting, engineering, and construction firms, as discussed, to recruit the best talented workforce. And in most cases, our employees very well could earn higher wages from these private companies. However, USACE offers something more. 2 things. I think both a purpose and people. And like the Army, we offer an opportunity to make a difference, to contribute to something bigger, and to work alongside the best in the business. And so from building our nation's infrastructure projects like dams, bridges, hospitals for our veterans, DODIA schools, facilities for our war fighters and families, supporting our partners and allies overseas with infrastructure and water resource solutions, to preventing floods, to responding to disasters, just like the tragic collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, the raging wildfires in Maui, and today we have nearly 300 people out there supporting Hurricanes Helene and Milton response. Our mission is to deliver engineering solutions for our nation's toughest challenges, and our human capital professionals are absolutely closely linked with every single one of those mission lines. So our overall creative strategy, to get after your question, is proactive talent sourcing, and it's a big part of how we continue to meet all of those mission requirements. So I'm going to break it down into three bullets, three innovative approaches that fall under that proactive talent sourcing strategy. But I want to start with calling out a shout out to the person that is really at the forefront of helping us not only develop that strategy, but implement it, which is Ms. Karen Payne. She's our Director of Human Resources. She's right out there. She's an absolute rock star. She is passionate about people, and she is passionate about collaborating, and she is passionate about making sure that we get the best talent on our team to deliver those missions. So thank you for that, and thank you, Karen. So the three approaches I want to highlight that we're applying in the Corps of Engineers. One, and under our Director of Human Resources, creation of something we call the Talent Acquisition Center of Expertise. And these are our recruiters that execute enterprise-level events, like was mentioned earlier by Dr. Schaefer, the total Army recruiting events and career fairs. We also employ our Center of Expertise professionals, our recruiters, at special STEM recruiting events like Society for Women Engineers or the Black Engineer of the Year Conference. And these enable us to reach diverse pools of candidates and onboard that talent quickly. Our Center of Expertise team also helps with all aspects of talent management for our leaders, not just with these career fairs, but with staffing questions, implementing training solutions, recruitment strategies, developing those things that those regional commands can implement. It also reduces our dependency on CHARA and makes sure that our leaders and managers are engaged in the talent management process. The second innovation is something we call the Talent Acquisition Recruiting Platform. It's something we've created under Karen's leadership, but it's a platform which enables candidates to submit their resume into a database that allows us to quickly cull those resumes for considering and for hiring managers to be able to consider them for selection. It allows us to fill vacancies faster and get the right talent at the right place at the right time. I actually tried it myself, and it was very easy. So I encourage anyone that has a person out there that's looking for a position to just go to USACE Army Careers, and there's an opportunity to submit your resume very seamlessly. I've tried usajobs.gov as well, and that's very complicated. Right now, we have a repository of over 15,000 current resumes that are in the system and that are available. And this, coupled with something that we're doing that we call people analytics, allows us to really take all that data, take our vacancies, and really match up, as I said, people with the right people with the right job and the right skills to execute the missions. The third and final innovation that we've been applying is really leveraging direct hiring authorities. And in 24, this past year, we leveraged direct hiring authority 4,500 times to bring people on board. We increased our strength 7%. 40,000 strong right now is the highest we've ever been. And despite the extremely competitive labor market that I know all of us are aware of, it allows us to reduce our hiring time from 80 days to roughly 30 days. And I know Karen has challenged us all and challenged the Army with a goal of having, right now we have 94% of our positions that qualify for direct hiring authority use. We want to go for 100%, and we want one direct hiring authority versus 8 different direct hiring authorities. And I think that's going to allow us to get there faster and to really streamline bringing that talent on board quickly, because that's really the key. In the competitive market, really, talent goes fast, and so if you don't act quickly, you will miss that opportunity. One last vignette, I had a conversation with one of our newer employees recently, and we were able to bring her on board in roughly 35 days. We hired her, she submitted for the job in June, we brought her on board in July. Now in October, she's still getting calls back for other organizations that are just getting around to calling her now, and she's already been working for us since July. So case in point, a key to success, and we have many more like that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, General Colleton, and a special thank you to the entire team that's helping on the hurricane relief. That is just terrible what's going on, and y'all are doing great things for those folks, so thank you for that.
Thank you. It's our privilege.
Yes, ma'am. With that, Ms. Freeze, same question. What recent innovations or creative strategies have you implemented in AMC that sparked excitement and impacted your command's overall commitment to the mission?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Army Materiel Command, as Mr. Moore alluded to, is one of the largest specifically civilian organizations in the Army. We have over 95,000 civilians in AMC, and they serve in all 50 states and 150 countries. We have 11 career fields and no less than 375 occupational series that make up the AMC enterprise. So a few of the initiatives that we are working on that have made a big difference, I'll start with our 5-page resume pilot. Where we have authorities that match for direct hire authority, we use that. But when we use the USA Jobs System, we have implemented in December of 23, in working with CHARA, a 5-page resume pilot. And what that means is when applicants go in to apply for AMC jobs, it tells them at the beginning of the job announcement that your resume should be limited to 5 pages. If it exceeds that, only the first 5 pages of the resume will be reviewed. This is really a best practice. We all know that industry resumes are dramatically shorter than government resumes, and what this does is it empowers us to see with the CHARA specialists that are putting the referral lists together, they can get through that candidate list more quickly to get us the referral list, and then it also enables our selection panels to be able to do their work more quickly. So since the time we started this, we've already seen a reduction of 2 weeks in the CHARA processing time, and it's made a big difference for us. Not only has it shortened our hiring time, and we'll take every day we can get, we've been able to do 5% more jobs in the same amount of time. So being able to do more faster is definitely on the right track. So Army Materiel Command is hopeful that this pilot will demonstrate improvements that can be leveraged across the entire Army in the near future. Another thing that we've incorporated into our human capital planning is a tool for global labor market supply, demand, and cost data analysis. We're using this tool to help us target our recruiting in geographical areas by being able to better understand what does the marketplace look like. How many candidates with the skills that we're looking for exist in that area? What is the difficulty of recruiting those candidates? What are other organizations paying them, to help us understand what competitive wages would be. And so this is something newer that we've started. We believe it's going to pay big dividends for us in our recruitment going forward. We've also just started to develop an exit and stay survey in our organic industrial base. And the federal wage system, the wage grade workforce, makes up a lot of the organic industrial base. We have 23 sites around the U.S. Having the ability to get their input about what keeps them in service and why they are leaving is something that we are focused deliberately on, and we believe it will go a long way in our retention efforts to make sure that we keep the right people. The organic industrial base, as part of the Army's overall modernization strategy, the organic industrial base is also being modernized to be ready for that signature modernization equipment as it comes in to be repaired, as the repair parts begin to be worked on. If the people are not also holding the right skills to be able to operate in that future environment, the Army won't be successful. So we are endeavoring in the acquisition, the development, the employee, and the retention of all of those employees in the next 3 to 5 years to make sure that we anticipate the new skills that they will need and to reskill and retrain that workforce to be ready to do that. So we're really excited about that.
And I think that probably all of us will speak to the underpinning and the significance of data analytics and predictive analytics in helping us to do our workforce development, our succession planning, and our recruiting. Using visualizations and dashboards has been a tremendous help across our AMC enterprise for leaders, supervisors, and now even our employees to be able to see where we are as an organization, what we need to focus on, and how to better get there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Fries. Over to Futures Command. Ms. Miller, what recent innovations or creative strategies have you implemented in Futures Command?
Thanks, Bill. Good morning to everyone. I am proud to be here today. This is a proud day for the Army, and it's an honor and a privilege to serve the Army as a Department of Army civilian. At Futures Command, AFC exists to transform the Army to drive war-winning future readiness. And so when we talk about our most valuable asset, that's people. They are our strength and our asymmetric advantage. And so recently, one of the things that we've implemented earlier this year, we had the chance to implement a new personnel system. It's the Science and Technology Reinvention Laboratory Modernization Demo. That's a mouthful. So let's call it STRL, okay? And what that is a pay-banded system that provides us the flexibilities that we need to be able to manage a highly STEM workforce. We have 65% of our workforce that are in STEM fields. And so we need the flexibility to be able to go out and acquire that talent, be able to compete for this highly sought after talent, develop the talent, pay that talent, and retain the talent. And so the flexibilities that we have embedded in this authority give us broad scoped direct hire authority. We've all talked about direct hire authority. And when we talk about the issues with USA jobs, direct hire authority actually helps us get out of USA jobs in many ways. And so we want to make sure that we're optimizing that direct hire authority and truly conducting strategic recruiting where we're getting the talent that we actually need instead of just posting and praying. This authority also allows us creative ways to incentivize prospective hires. For instance, we now have the authority to give an 80-hour time off incentive to new hires. So when you think about new civilians coming into the workforce, they're coming in with 0 leave on the books. When you're new years 0 to 3, you're accumulating 4 hours of annual leave of pay period, 4 hours of sick leave of pay period. It takes a while to build that up, but we're able to attract new talent by saying, hey, if you come in, you can have some time off on the books if you need it. And so that's a really meaningful aspect of this STRL that we have. So when we talk about what makes AFC a great place to work, it's really our flexibility and our propensity towards innovation, and also our support to quality of life. We have flexible work. 85% of AFC civilians telework, and we also have some that are remote workers. It has to be focused on the mission needs, but we actually are able to make those flexibilities work. We have good internal progression. So in the last 3 years, 60% of our vacancies were filled with candidates from within AFC, and 94% of promotions were internal to AFC. So we really do make a concerted effort to look out for our people and their career progression. We have varied locations. AFC has opportunities across 73 locations around the world. And so almost anywhere you want to be, we probably have an opportunity for you at AFC. And then because of the flexibilities that we have, we're able to reward contributions. In addition to the pay for performance system that we just put in place, We have a robust employee recognition program that recognizes and rewards inventions and significant contributions that are made by members of our workforce. We are dedicated to talent management, and we are very deliberate and strategic about how we approach that. So since my arrival at AFC, we've had a campaign where we really want to evolve to being strong at how we manage our talent. And so we have put into place our AFC Human Capital Operating Plan that actually gives us aspirational but attainable and measurable objectives and goals for how we're going to manage our workforce. We have a talent management board that is focused on developing and preparing our workforce so that we have a strong bench of talent that's ready to step up to the plate whenever those key opportunities present themselves. And then we're leveraging opportunities to launch new developmental programs. Earlier, I was listening to the AUSA when he was meeting with all of the executives, and we were talking about thinking how we build that next generation of executives. And at AFC, we're already moving out with building what we're calling our AFC Next Gen Executive Program, and this is going to be a 12-month internal development program that's going to provide an experiential opportunity to employees with demonstrated potential. Our recognition programs, aside from your typical Civilian of the Quarter and the performance awards that we tend to get, we have what we call the Distinguished Member of the Workforce Award, where we're recognizing excellence across our workforce. We also have the newly established CARE Award that recognizes spouses and families who are making differences in their communities. And then we recognize innovation across the Army through the Major General Harold Green Award for Innovation. And so lots of reasons that AFC is a best place to work. Let me just take a drink here for a minute, because I have one other thing I want to point out. So earlier we saw ATEC called out as one of the top 5 places to work. And ATEC is one of our supporting commands. We work very, very closely with ATEC. They're tied into AFC. And I wanted to highlight the fact that they also are leveraging flexible personnel system. They are part of the acquisition demonstration personnel system that provides simplified hiring, flexible compensation through broadbanding, and authorities that reward employee contributions. They have commander-driven emphasis on training, and they're also using data to optimize real-time leadership decisions on how they manage their workforce. And so I think there's a lot of promise in these flexible personnel systems that we have available, and where we have to manage these lots of STEM talent, we truly do need to leverage those flexibilities.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Miller. This actually concludes round 1. And I just wanted to highlight there were, I thought, a few common threads there. First of all, leveraging DHA to the extent the policies and law allow, direct hire authority. I can't say enough how much it helped me in some of my prior jobs, and that's something we all probably need to understand and really continue to work toward making DHA even easier to use, all those different authorities, and getting the job series aligned and acceptable. It's a challenge working through that. And the second thread I heard was that the challenges of working with USA jobs. And I mean, that's, in my humble opinion, kind of the elephant in the room when you're trying to recruit in a timely way. I've lost count of the talent I lost because I couldn't get the job offer over the finish line, knowing they were the right person for the right job and just couldn't get it there. And then some other organization got them. And as General Collington mentioned, you're one employee still getting phone calls three months later. That's unbelievable. And then recognizing performance and how you retain talent. I'd say is the third thread that I heard from you all. So thank you for that. Moving on to round two, going to have a few more focused questions. And again, I'll start with you, General Colleton. From a command and mission perspective, how are Army civilians in the Corps of Engineers engaged and contributing in keeping the Army a great place to work?
Thanks for that question. A couple of things. And so just like all of these organizations and all your organizations, we not only want to attract talent, we want to retain the talent that we work so hard to get on the team. And to do that, we have identified the areas where we got to be better at, and that's onboarding, offboarding, and everything in between. And so at USACE, employees can start at the very beginning of their career at a GS7, and they have opportunities to progress throughout their career and get promotions along the way and stay with us for 40 years. But we also recognize that the workforce today is looking for flexibility, and they may not want to retire from one organization, and they may be better if they go back and forth out to industry and come back to the federal government with new skills, knowledge, abilities, and innovations. And so we welcome that, and we are trying to embrace that in different ways. And so one of the ways or strategies that we are focusing on to retain, and we've done a little bit of it here today, is really recognize what FEVS offers. And so operationalizing FEVS is one of our consistent strategies that we've been working on for the last number of years. This year, in 2024, we had 18,000 responses. We were the second highest in the Army for overall responses. But we recognize that just getting a lot of responses doesn't mean anything. We have to do something with it and operationalize that. And that was alluded to in a lot of the discussions and speakers that came up earlier. We have 44 districts, 9 divisions, and multiple labs and centers. And all of those had developed FEVS implementation and action plans, and they're a crucial component of us really retaining talent. As talked about, that keeps down our turnover rates. It allows members to be involved in implementing solutions and making improvements at the workplace. It's allowed us to enable implementing more flexible workplace policies, developing more development or increasing more developmental detail opportunities for individuals, really creating more opportunities for mentor-mentee matches, and really opportunities to listen to what our workforce is saying. And just like today that we did earlier, we don't just encourage participation in FEBS, but we celebrate it, and we continue to celebrate it annually, recognizing the commands and the members in those commands for what they're doing to operationalize the Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey. And the second thing I want to highlight is really how do we focus on taking our talent to the next level, which is training. And so the men and women of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers serve our nation well, as I alluded to in my previous bullets, but we owe them the best training, the best education, and the best technology so that they can stand up and deliver on their full potential. We want them to be all they can be. And so we are committed to giving them the tools they need to succeed and be better every day. And one thing that we have infused energy in is something we call the USACE Learning Center. Also falls under our Directorate of Human Resources. It's located in Huntsville at Redstone Arsenal. And this learning center has roughly 500 classes that they maintain and review regularly for the curriculum components to training individual engineers, groups, and teams on special contracting practices, specific disciplines, or really just collaboration and team building and leading teams. But they do that physically in Huntsville. They can also export that virtually for training opportunities. They also are willing to travel to locations in order to minimize on travel resource dollars. So they'll export a class to Hawaii or to Europe to get after a number of our employees in those other locations. They also have tailored bite-sized training sessions that are like those YouTube videos that you see online to learn how to do maybe somewhat complicated things in 2 to 5 minutes. And I actually went on, there's a couple on how to read a piezometer, how to do a testing of your fire extinguishers, to how to onboard people in your organization. So we had 18,000 requests last year that were met, training sessions that were met for individual people of our team. And we are continuously using our data and our people analytics to look at what are the skills as we bring on new people that our new employees need to be able to advance from new employees and apprentices to journeymen to more experienced team members. And what we've looked at, our Chief of Engineers, General Graham, has asked us to look at is what is the health of our project delivery teams. These teams that are delivering mega, multi-billion-dollar construction projects out there, as we onboard many new people, they don't all have the same skill sets. And we need to assess what they need for training and then figure out how to get them the training they need at the right time. And so we want them to be all they can be because the Army and the Department of Defense and the nation needs us to be all that we can be. So thanks for that question.
Thank you. No, that was awesome, General Colleton. Ms. Freeze, your turn. Your question. So as you mentioned earlier, the AMC is transforming the organic industrial base to better strategically support future Army readiness. What new opportunities is this creating for Army civilians, and how will it benefit the Army going forward?
So thank you for that question. You know, I think many of us, when we think about a civilian employee, we generally think first about our GS schedule employees. Right. And so the majority of the organic industrial base, or the OIB, is under the federal wage system. So we've given specific emphasis and focus to how are we going to develop them in the next 3 to 5 years to do what they need to do. We have developed inside our AMC Civilian Implementation Plan an organic industrial base, human capital, modernization implementation plan. And so it is going to focus on the gaps that are in the skills that our workforce has today and those that will be needed in only a few years. And we are looking for the opportunities to use training, create training, to be able to get them ready for that. One of the new initiatives that we started just a year ago is a pilot for talent management and career mapping. Some of you that are in the contracting career field and maybe in some other organizations are exploring career pathway tools for your organizations. I am hopeful that the Army will make an enterprise decision on that in the near future, but what we're doing is to develop leaders and supervisors, which includes our GS workforce, as well as our GS occupational series, like in the logistics arena, but especially our wage grade. I'm like Miss Miller, I need a drink of water. Stand by. Thank you. So our wage grade employees are the industrial arts, whether it is welders, painters, machinists, a lot of electronics. And so they have special skills that they're going to need. So we are focusing on allowing them to voluntarily go into this talent management tool, identify what they think their career pathway would look like, and also explore adjacent career pathways. They can see the training and skills that they already have, the training that would be required for them to advance or to move into another career area. They are so excited about this because it's the first time that they have felt that the Army has cared about them as part of the civilian workforce. So we have a huge amount of momentum, and we're continuing to expand that as we go into FY25, and we will roll out all of the occupational series that we develop in specific sites to be able to use across our sites all across the U.S. Another thing that we are doing is a targeted marketing campaign plan for the OIB. Honorable Schaefer talked about the civilian marketing campaign overall, which is great. We are focusing on those industrial arts so that we can target using the videos and the advertisements. They can see themselves doing those skills in those advertisements. It's going to help us as we move forward. We teamed with the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for product support, their office for a recruitment video that is underway, and we're working closely with the logistics functional community as well. Also building partnerships with industry, academia, government across the spectrum, federal, local, the state governments is going to be part of our way ahead. Having official partnerships, whether it is for apprentice programs, internships, and creating more deliberate pipelines into the workforce is also an important part of what we're doing. As we're developing the training and education for the workforce, we're not going to administer traditional training, and we don't have the privilege of it taking 5 years for us to fully develop the skills of the workforce. We have to do it at a much more rapid pace to be ready in time for the Army's transformation and modernization. So we are working through electronic critical task lists, making sure that we have technical skills, training labs, being able to create modern training that is micro-credentialing, can be administered in small time periods, using virtual representations of the equipment and the assets that the artisans are using or will be working on, and making sure that we have those adaptable to real-time data so that we can much more rapidly simulate and do what we need to do to help them be ready. So the organic industrial base is a huge part of our nation's insurance policy, and it underpins what we do with our equipment and our Army, especially in times of crisis or surge. And so that's some of the things that we are focusing on.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Fries. And for last but not least, our final question of round two, Ms. Miller. Futures Command is focused on future Army readiness as an integrated team, really thinking about innovation. And in the context of keeping the Army a best place to work, where do we need Army civilians to contribute fresh thinking to keep the Army at the forefront of innovation?
So the AFC team works with Army teammates to drive continuous transformation across the Army. And in doing that, AFC has 6 essential functions that we perform. The first is defining the future operational environment, or the FOE, and that's basically identifying those factors that set the condition for the future battlefield. Second essential function is research. We have folks driving concepts, experimentation, fielding requirements, and also integrating all of those functions. And so when it comes to Army innovation, our Army civilians need to be wherever there is work that's focused on improving and innovating the future fight. For instance, and I didn't mention this earlier, AFC, we're a population of service and civilian members of our workforce, just under 18,000. 91% are civilians. And so we have civilians that are supporting all of those functions that I mentioned. We have civilians that are working in scientific laboratories and engineering centers. They're conducting research and development of new capabilities. We have civilians working in concept development, where they're formulating, experimenting, and developing requirements for future warfighting concepts. We've got civilians working across cross-functional teams, where they're working across R&D and acquisition lines to be able to coordinate delivery of new capability requirements. And then also within ATEC, we have civilians who play a key role testing and evaluating newly developed capabilities. And so the bottom line answer to that question, Bill, is civilians need to be anywhere there's work that's happening when it comes to Army innovation and transformation. I think I want to highlight again the fact that ATEC has so many civilians working in that STEM area, and they've achieved that top 5 status. I think that speaks to the fact that their civilians see themselves as part of the Army mission, and there's a sense of satisfaction with where they sit in the workplace and what their work environment looks like. And so with the broader part of AFC, we're a young command, We're just 6 years old. We just celebrated our 6th birthday, and we just recently, as I mentioned, implemented this more flexible personnel system. We're expecting that across AFC, we're going to achieve that level of status as an employer as well.
Wow. Great. Okay. Thank you. And just to hit on a few key points, I mean, General Colleton, you talked about onboarding and how important that is in bringing someone in a way that makes them feel like they're part of a team. And you know, I used to always say, never underestimate the power of the culture, because culture will trump many things. I'll just leave it at that. And helping them understand the culture and fit within it, and maybe even evolve it over time, is really important. And then Christina, the impact of the wage grade workforce. And as a former functional chief of a career field, the logistics career fields, I always felt like we didn't pay enough attention to the wage grade workforce, and they have really very disciplined credentials that they need, and we should aspire to give them. So another great aspect. And then, of course, innovation. Ms. Miller, with it's that STEM workforce that really wants to work on the latest and greatest often, and so you got to keep them excited about what they're doing, and so that's great. I mean, these three panelists, when you think about it, so we have over 263,000 Army civilians, and not to do math in public, which is always a dangerous thing, so I did it anyway. Well over 150,000 civilians work in the organizations that these three great leaders represent. So wow, that's most of the Army's civilians are in your three organizations. So with that, let's give our panelists a round of applause. And I'm going to go grab the gifts for y'all. Thank you, Leah. Careful. These are some big steps up here. We were a little worried about them, but on behalf of AUSA, thank you so much for taking the time to share these incredible insights, Christina.
Thank you very much.
Kim, thank you. With all of us, and hopefully there are some pearls that people could pick up on and exercise in their organizations. So thank you all, and please be careful getting off the stage. All right, we are well on our way. And we've got some great answers here, I think. I hope. We will see. Hang on for 1 second. Okay, if you remember, the question I asked you all a little while ago, what action will you take to keep the Army in the top as one of the top best places to work in the federal government? And let's see what kind of answers we got here. So, all right, this was an anonymous one, but continue to ensure that all members of the Department of the Army workforce are valued and included. Foster an environment of learning and development, and I think we heard some of that. You know, once you get through the challenges of recruiting great talent, you've got to figure out how to retain it and helping them develop themselves over time. It's funny, just a short story with the secretary. She was mentioned to me when she was at a Department of Defense civilian that when she worked in the Pentagon, that launched her career, and that's exactly what happened to me as a GS-13. I had kind of hit a ceiling, and I couldn't get past it. And one of my mentors said, you need to get out of your job and get into the Pentagon and start learning about the bigger part of the Army. And she said that's exactly what happened to her. She changed jobs and developed herself as a better leader, and it's just something to think about. Mobility is a tough issue to deal with, but you've got to think through it depending on what your career goals are as you try to figure out how to develop yourself, and getting help from great mentors as we all have had. Another answer: the Army civilian Corps will continue to advance in technological innovations to be ready to support our soldiers. I mean, we are here to help our Army get better, and so it's all about that mission that we work on. And, let's see, here's an action. My team will work to collaborate and integrate efforts in the talent, innovation, and management space across both military and civilian members of all components of the Army. So that was an anonymous one, but reaching out to local high schools, JROTC, and tell the civilian story and showcase how the Army is a great employer with lots of benefits. And that's another great point. You know, I meet a lot of young people who are willing to serve, but they're not able to serve for various reasons, but they might be able to serve as an Army civilian, and reaching out to those that may not have the stuff it takes to become a member of the military may have exactly what we need on the Department of the Army civilian side, and have the passion that we desire for a Department of Army civilian. Challenge teammates and coworkers to not just vent and complain, but to look at how they can influence change at their levels. Super important point. Sometimes it's nice to vent. We all have to do that. But then thinking through, so, you know, what steps are we going to take at our level to make things better? All right, last one here. Remind myself that what I do every day is important to help our Army in war and in peace. And that is great. You know, the great book, Start With Why, and reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing is super important, and helping your employees, the people that work for you or with you, or that you work for, reminding them sometimes what they need to be doing. I mean, why we are doing what we're doing is just super critical. So with that, there were some terrific answers and many more here too, and sorry I can't get to those, but I want to try to keep us on time. But thank you all for the inputs. They were excellent, and give yourselves a round of applause for that. So I think we've got just a few minutes, and what I'd like to do now is just ask a question, and if anyone has an answer, we've got mics out there, at least I hope so. It's hard to see from up here, but hopefully, you know, I would encourage you to have the courage to stand up and engage on some of these questions. I've just got a couple, and it'd be great just to kind of wrap this up. We've had a great civilian showcase so far. First question here. How can we sustain our connection to the mission and identify innovations or changes to ensure our Army remains one of the top 10 best places to work? Anybody have any thoughts on that? Hopefully we're not hitting you too cold on this one. You know, I thought we heard some great ideas from Ms. Miller, especially on the innovation side. We had a speech at the DUSA session this morning where we had the civilian senior executives all gathered together. We brought in Professor Mark McNeely from the University of North Carolina. He talked about how to adopt artificial intelligence into your daily missions and organizations. And another way, you know, his thesis really was that AI is going to change the workplace significantly over time. Some jobs are going to go away. Some other jobs are going to be created. And most importantly, those who are going to be successful employees are going to be the ones that understand how to leverage AI in their future. You're going to start out way ahead of your peers if you do that. So that's another way that looking at the suite of tools you have available to do your job day in and day out. Anybody else have a perspective?
Yeah, hello. Oh, gosh. Name's Alex. Yeah, I think for this one, I would say to have the confidence to know that no matter where you are in the organization, you know, at a lower level, medium, senior, that you can have an idea that can transform your organization. And I think it's important to just have that confidence, and especially at those lower levels, the end user, you have the greatest proximity to issues oftentimes. And I think it's just having that confidence to speak up if you have a good idea, to push it forward. Because I think you'll find that, the rest of your organization wants to move forward and innovate. So those are the 2 cents there. Thank you.
No, that's a great point. And it's amazing how impactful you can be in a meeting or whatever, and someone comes up with an idea that others will try to shoot down, and sometimes the reaction will be they'll never come up with another idea because they just feel like they were embarrassed about it. And you really got to give all ideas in this current day and age considerable thought, and treat everyone with dignity and respect as well, and look at all levels. I found as the CEO of the Defense Commissary Agency, I got more good ideas from folks working in the stores than I ever got out of people working in the headquarters, because people in the stores, where for our mission, that was the edge, that was the tactical edge of our battlefield, where we delivered the mission to military families. Those people working in the stores knew what needed to be done to make it better. And so it helped me tremendously to hear that inventory specialist or that checkout clerk tell me why they couldn't make people happy or whatever as they did their missions, or what was going well on the positive side. And extremely helpful to me in trying to change things strategically and trying to adopt best practices from certain places and apply them across that entire enterprise. So listening at all levels is super important. Yes.
Hi, I'm Karen Payne from USACE. One of the things, first of all, the connection to the mission is so important. And I find that people come to the Army, and especially with me, with USACE, because of the mission. And so every point in their career, we need to really just talk about the mission. When you look at whether new grads or journeyman level or even our senior staff coming in, is really make sure that at every point they realize what they have to do with the mission. For HR folks, I always tell my HR people is that, when we respond to emergencies like North Carolina or the bridge, it's because of us, because of our HR, because we brought those people in, we train them, and we are part of that mission so that they understand that what the mission is and how they affect the mission. I think when you talk about innovations, and I did, sitting in the SES meeting early this morning is about AI. I have had a couple of trainings in AI, one at Harvard and one at Vanderbilt. And what got me the most is that, especially when my initial training is, there was discussion on, maybe we need an AI expert and for the commands, and they can be the guru of it. And of course, you do need that. But the response from somebody that was very AI-oriented said, no, every person that has responsibility for their command needs to be AI knowledgeable, because you need to know the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. And I've taken that into HR, is how can we expand the role in HR using AI, whether recruiting or retaining, be more efficient. It's not to replace, but maybe it will in some cases someday, but it's to enhance the skill sets of HR folks, but also it's more specifically for USACE and our missions. So I think those are ways. And the other is just making sure that training and development is always on the foresight. When I talked for our folks about recruiting, and they say, hey, we have a position, I said, how are you going to retain that employee? So before you actually recruit, how are you going to retain whoever you get in that position? You always need to look at retention from day one and be innovative in that. And just a good spark with training and development. Sometimes that's the first to go if you have a budget crunch. I say let it be the last thing that goes, because we have to continue training and developing our staff to make sure we're here for the mission for today, but also for tomorrow.
Great thoughts, Karen. And I think we have time for one more. And Karen Payne, by the way, is actually another member of the AUSA Civilian Advisory Committee. So thank you, Karen, for your contributions there.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Pat Baker, Army Research Lab. Yeah, so I think, when you get sustained connection to the mission, I think we've got a lot of great things that we're doing in terms of, our outreach through Army educational outreach programs, through our extramural funded efforts into the universities and academics as well. So I think when you get that sustained connection, we have to start making sure we're looking for people who aren't only good, but also have a propensity to serve. And, we can do that, I think, by taking an whole of Army approach, but then connecting those programs where we're actually funding efforts and we're engaging with people early, even down in K through 12. But then telling that whole Army story is part of that. Nobody should come out who has part of their education funded by the Army and not know that it's funded by the Army, but also that there's a bigger mission that they can serve. So I think as we look at like our initiatives through these total Army recruiting events and stuff like that, make sure we're taking the whole of Army approach, both military and civilian, as well. So I think there's some opportunities that we can team together from a bigger perspective on some of that.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Well, we are quickly running out of time. I did want to ask, I do use the volunteers on this AUSA Civilian Advisory Committee. If you sit on the committee, would you please stand just so we could recognize you? And I know we got Karen here and Christina. I thought we had a few others. Yeah, there's Susie Torres. Thank you. And thank you all. Thank you all. And we've got a retired mentor of mine, Don Tyson, who actually is an advisor from AUSA that helps us out on that, and Phil Sackwitz as well. I know Phil's not here. Hopefully Don's out there somewhere. But one last thing we'd like to do before we close, and that is to recite the Civilian Creed. And just a little story about it. It was at this forum back in, I think it was the 2018 annual AUSA meeting, where some folks said, hey, was it time to take a look at the Civilian Creed and modernize it, for lack of a better term? And the secretary grabbed a small group of us and put us in a room and had us take a hard look at it. And frankly, we thought it looked pretty good. In the end, after serious effort, we added a single word to the Civilian Creed, and that was published, signed by the Secretary, and published in 2019. And the word we added was leadership. So you'll see it in there. But it used to be all about stability and continuity, but it's really about leadership, expertise, and continuity is what civilians kind of bring to the Army. And so we should be proud of what we do. And with that, I'd like to bring up the new director of the Civilian Career Management Activity, Ike Zettler. Thank you for doing this. He's brand new in the job, so Ike, even though you're kind of a little bit old school in the career management business, but thank you for coming up. And he's going to lead us in reciting the current Civilian Creed. Ike?
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this opportunity. If I could ask you all to please stand and join me. If you should be on the screens, I believe it is. If not, there's also a little card on the table that you can take home with the creed. So please recite after me. I am an Army civilian, a member of the Army team. I am dedicated to the Army, soldiers, and civilians. I will always support the mission. I will provide leadership, stability, continuity during war and peace. I support and defend the Constitution of the United States and consider it an honor to serve our nation and our Army. I will live the Army values of loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. I am an Army civilian. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Ike. Here you go. Quick gift for you. Thank you. Thanks. Well, that wraps up today's Civilian Showcase. Thank you all for attending and seeing us through. Ike, thank you for doing that. An interesting point, I found many military that didn't know, we take the same oath essentially as any Army officer, and that's an important fact, that we are in it for a lot more than the money and the typical job. So thank you all for being here today, and have a great AUSA week.